Have you been avoiding conflict lately? Are you afraid that if you speak your truth to someone, you might damage the relationship permanently? Is inner conflict eating you up inside? Maybe you're thinking one thing, but doing another, and you just can't seem to get your head and heart to line up. As humans, we all deal with conflict. Join Jennifer McKenna now as she talks to business leaders about the importance of conflict and how we can all move through it with greater grace and ease, ultimately taking our relationships and our lives to the next level by facing conflict courageously.
Welcome, everyone. Today's topic is about lifestyle and fitness and how this plays into our culture and all the misinformation we get about how to be our personal best in terms of our health and wellness and fitness. And so I have asked the founder and CEO of Barbells, Bolts, and Bourbon, Joe Moore, to join us today and share a lot about what he knows, which is way more than we could cover in an hour. So, Joe, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Jen. It's a pleasure to be here.
I'm so glad to have you. So, Joe has been my trainer, and I learned a ton from him, which is why I want to share him with you. But to kick off, Joe, why don't you tell us why you chose this field? How did you get into this?
So, to start, Jen, it goes back to watching my grandfather at 72 years old decide that he was going to make a lifestyle change for himself. And over the course of 10 years, he lost about 200 pounds. He started right about 350 pounds and was smoking a pack of cigarettes a day, made that lifestyle change. And I watched him when I was in my teens develop into a healthy man from being completely unhealthy and obese, right? So that segued me into going to college, finding CrossFit back in 2007. I started coaching then. That was outside of the realm of sport because I coached a little bit of youth football and some soccer back in my hometown, but then got to college, found CrossFit, started coaching there, and had a blast with it. Group fitness was a lot of fun, and I fortunately had a mentor who encouraged me to go to grad school, where I got my master's in health and kinesiology, where that leveraged a whole lot more within the mental side of training. I've been at it for a little over a decade now and just keep finding new tools, but also just the simple things that really have worked and should have lasted time. But we've seemed to gotten really flashy and really fancy with our fitness from time to time, or our nutrition, and think that we've got to make it overly complicated. But reality is we can keep it short and sweet.
Oh, definitely. And, a little bit on my background related to this, even though this is a big cultural issue, we talk if anyone goes to the website and reads the overview of today's topic, it's all about how much misinformation is out there. And I do think it's confusing, which is why I thought everything that you've taught me has been as good as gold. It's helped me tremendously in taking my wellness goals to the next level. For those that don't know, in the audience, I have had multiple diagnoses over the years. When I was a child, I was diagnosed with something that they didn't have a name for. I was just chronically ill with 104 temperature every other week for well over a year. And we had hit a max in antibiotic use. And I got sent to an epidemiologist who was a pediatrician. He put me on an experimental vaccine out from Europe and basically rebuilt my immune system. So I did not come from a fitness background, to say the least.
Right.
That was my childhood. As an early adult, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, then diagnosed with breast cancer and psoriatic arthritis. Now, what I want the audience to really hear is that I am prescription-free. I lead an incredibly healthy and busy and active lifestyle as a single mom of two very busy kids. And I traded in a lot of bad lifestyle habits that led to those diagnoses in my older years for a very big dedication to going to the gym, going to yoga, doing things that have completely transformed my life, which is why I believe I am prescription free and healthier than I have ever been in my lifetime. I turned 50 this year in September. We will be celebrating. And
congratulations.
thank you. And I have greater vitality today than I have at any other age in my life. So this is why I'm so passionate about it. Our obesity rates are very high. Our chronic illness rates are very high. Our depression rates are very high. And I do believe that if we are able to move the needle within ourselves to move to being intrinsically motivated toward healthy lifestyles as opposed to just forcing ourselves into these diets and these exercise routines that are just going to cause us to swing back. I think it's critical. So you've heard about my passion for this, and you've talked about your grandfather kind of inspiring you. What keeps you going? What makes you so passionate about today's conversation?
The reality there, Jen, and I appreciate how you just structured that comment, because it's more than just a passion for me. It's an external passion within sharing that knowledge at this point. I do want to be the healthiest me. That is important to me. But at the same time, I would like to reflect that to other people as well, that it is possible and doable given circumstances beyond your control. Because if you look at my family history, a lot of my family ran into the same obesity problems that my grandfather did, right? So if we take those little action steps daily within the fitness, like what you mentioned of going to the gym and working out or doing yoga or making the healthier choices within nutrition, it really can lead us down a pathway of health and wellness. And what leads me to encourage that with people is I really have a passion for people. I love people, and I want more people to be around longer. And quite frankly and honestly, I've seen too many people die too soon because of an obesity problem. So for me, it's trying to get everybody to recognize that obesity is a problem, that it is a current issue that we're running into. And like you said, it needs to be intrinsic within how do we get motivated to make those changes, because that's the lasting way within the approach.
Yes. So in the workplace, I'm a consultant and I do a lot of culture consulting. And so I go in and out of corporate America in multiple different industries and businesses to work with the leaders to change their behaviors and, also their organizational structures at times, because that's what changes culture, and behaviors need to be incentivized in a healthier manner. But when we get to behavior change, my whole methodology is based on intrinsic motivation. I do not believe that it is effective to just tell somebody what to do and bring them a manual and expect them to just retain it and get it and be motivated to do it. I think that's why behavior change doesn't stick, right? And so my goal in my work is to incentivize and then provide tools to kick that intrinsic motivation in so that we change the neural system inside someone's brain to make them genuinely want to make the better choice. And I don't think that's any different when it comes to health and wellness. There's a whole slew of people who get the bad diagnosis from their doctor. They're told they have to change their diet. They're told they have to take on exercise, and they do it by force and obligation. Well, that's not intrinsic motivation, right? So it's a burden. What I'm on a mission to do is teach people how to shift their system to want to genuinely get excited about going to the gym as opposed to feeling like it's the obligation. And I feel like you play into that extremely well as a trainer. So talk to us about what you see when you're working with clients, your own clients around fitness, where they struggle with that intrinsic motivation and what you recommend to them to be able to amp that up.
Two things there, Jen, that I really focus on. And one's going to seem foundational, and truly it's about goal setting and making sure that we have a target we're trying to hit. And within fitness, that can range from the next competition to just feeling and looking better. And often some of my clients even come to me and they feel ashamed when they have this overall physique desire. And the reality there, I don't discourage that. If you want to look a certain way and that's your driving force, we can get there. Just have that specific goal, right? So that's the first thing I encourage with my clients. And I think that that's one thing that you found really well. And know that once we reach goals, we truly should celebrate them. And then the evolution can evolve, right? So there's short-term, long-term goals. I encourage clients to find that long-term goal, and then we substructure the short-term goals accordingly, right? So that's step one, is making sure we have that target in mind. Does that make sense?
Yes, and it's brilliant because I do not believe that I would have the lifestyle habits I do of going to the gym every day if I didn't have that. When I was recovering from multiple surgeries from a bilateral mastectomy, and I was forced out of work, and I have my own business, so that meant a major financial hit. I remember saying to myself, I now know what it feels like to be my weakest. I want to know what it feels like to be my strongest. And I put that image in my head, and that's what carried me through from being at my lowest point to being where I am today. So I totally get what you're saying. And then I think you as a trainer were really helpful in helping me create those sub goals that you're talking about, right? I had my vision. I had my ultimate aspiration, but you were able to help break those down into manageable parts.
And
so,
I think that that's a crucial aspect. No, I wanted you to chime that in. That was perfect because that gave me a little bit more to bite onto, because goals are crucial, but also having a coach that can help you wade through the muddy waters, right, is pretty important, because there's people that have spent a lifetime trying to figure out what the most effective way to build muscle is, or the most effective way to lose fat. And the thing I love about Jen, and where I cannot say this enough, is she is a hard worker, and she will work her butt off for you if you give her a task. And at the end of the day, yes, I am talking about you. You're fantastic, and you like to work hard. However, sometimes that work hard can come to bite us in the butt if we're not taking our recovery time, right? And that's one of the things that I think is important from a coach, as well as from that client who is trying to work out and get back into fitness. Have some leniency with yourself at time when you're trying to get back into it. So my second point, which segues this perfectly, is I really encourage my clients to make it something doable and something they consider fun, right? So the progression of adding weights or moving more weight could be fun to people, or just different styles of movement, right? But if fitness really isn't fun and you're not enjoying it, as well as it's not sustainable, then you're not going to keep at it.
Right. It's funny that you mentioned that too, because I'm currently in the process of thinking about where I'm going to take my routine, how I'm going to take it to the next level, because I do feel that I've become stagnant. And it wasn't long ago that I literally worked my life around the classes that I would come to at the gym.
Right.
And now I can feel where my schedule's gotten extremely busy. I'm juggling quite a bit right now, and I'm trying to fit it in. Well, when I'm really at the peak of my intrinsic motivation, I'm fitting everything around it. So instead of allowing myself to flatline, I'm still going, but I've recognized I don't get as excited. So to your point, if it's not fun, that's my cue to say, okay, let's change it up a bit. It's time to revisit the goals. It's time to revisit the routine and take it to the next level. And so I'm right there. As you're describing this, I'm completely tracking with you.
That's beautiful, and I will segue to a third point. I know I only said two, but if I may, I'm going to take a third one for you.
You can have three.
All right, cool. Because the third one would be, know that everything's seasonal around those goals, okay? Like, you're going to have a recovery time where your body needs to rebuild. It needs to take time and rest. And that's a good time. And you can improve your movement. You can learn some new skills during that time. And then you should take another season where you try and strengthen yourself toward that goal. And potentially you're going to compete within your goal. But at the end of the day, I encourage everybody to at least compete within themselves for that 3 to 4 months. So if we break it down seasonally and we look at it in those three means of recovery, strength, and then competition, we could go 4 months at a time and really hone in on that training and know the intention that we're trying to get out of that training. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And, you know, we're talking a lot about the training specifically, but I do know that you're a big believer in the kind of whole lifestyle approach of looking at other things to support those goals. And so the actual weight training or the going to the gym, you know, Joe, by the way, for our audience's sake, is the one that tried to break me of the habit of saying I'm working out. And as you notice, Joe, I'm using the term training. So
I love
can you touch briefly for our audience's sake on why we wanted to change that language?
Right. So the little bit of language there that Jen's referring to is classically, as Americans primarily, we think of this term of working out as going to the gym or moving some weight. But the reality is we all morph it into this working our problems out, right? We insert that problem word in between the working out, and we often almost make it self-abusive. And we like to work even harder because we're working out all of these factors, whether it be working on our nutritional issues or our stress issues with work or this, that, the other. But we often have structured this gym component as a outlet within a stress relief, where in the flip side, we should be viewing this as more of a style of training, right? Because there is times where we can have that release and stress relief from that style of training. But more times than not, we need to be building muscle. We need to be releasing the good chemicals and the good endorphins. And like you mentioned, that holistic approach so that the body is not perpetually crashing under bad stress, right? So that's where I think that overtraining occurs, right? Doing too much in the gym because we're thinking that we've got to work out too much or too hard to get to the end result or that goal.
Yes.
Did that highlight it for you?
Yes, definitely. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to go with that bigger aerial view of lifestyle a little bit more. We're going to drill down into that. So stay tuned.
Connecting you with the best of the conscious minds in the world. OMTimes Radio. IOM FM.
Namaste, friends. This is Deva Pramala Miten, and we want to let you know that we will be in America and Canada this May. We'll be coming with our Wings of Mantra World Tour, coming up the West Coast to Boulder, Santa Fe, Sedona, Scottsdale, Santa Barbara, LA, Marin, Santa Cruz, San Jose, Escondido, Edmonds, and up to Canada to Victoria and Vancouver. You can find details on our website, devapramalmiten.com. Hope to see you there. Lots of love. Namaste.
OMTimes magazine is one of the leading online content providers of positivity, wellness, and personal empowerment. A philanthropic organisation, their net proceeds are funneled to support worldwide charity initiatives via Humanity Healing International. Through their commitment to creating community and providing conscious content, they aspire to uplift humanity on a global scale. Connect at omtimes.com. OMTimes, creating a more conscious lifestyle.
I'm Kathy Williams, host of Sexy Mom Abundant Life radio show on Thursdays at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. On the show, we explore living abundantly in every area of your life. ways to let go of limiting patterns and beliefs, and to step into the flow of creativity and possibility, knowing you are supported by the universe.
Opiates has taken everything and everyone I've ever loved away from me. Everything. I blew my ankle out and I got prescribed pain pills by my doctor. If making my detox public is going to help somebody, I'm all for it. I just wish I would have had a warning.
Opioid dependence can happen after just 5 days. Know the truth, spread the truth. A message from Truth, the Ad Council, and ONDCP.
Welcome back, everyone. We are on air with Joe Moore, who is the founder and CEO of Barbells, Bolts, and Bourbon. And we're talking about taking care of ourselves and fitness and all the misinformation out there. And so we haven't gotten down into that misinformation yet, which we're going to. But where we left off before the commercial break was talking about training versus working out. But the one thing I want to take a little bit of a left turn here, because what I mentioned before is there's a more holistic lifestyle view from where you sit and where I sit, but primarily as a coach that, you know, there's more to it than going to the gym. And I suspect that a large number of our audience members don't go to the gym right now. And so let's talk about meeting them where they are. What are some things that are super important outside of going to the gym, and what are some things that people could start doing if they're not going to the gym? So what I'm saying to you is, I know you talk about hydration and rest and those types of things. So Joe, if you had to steer new timers, right, who are trying to become motivated to make that lifestyle change in a new direction, what would you tell them? Once they have their vision or their big goal of what they want to achieve and why, where would you take them from there? What do they need to consider when they're creating a plan?
Right, absolutely, Jen. So that's perfect. And I have about 5 things that we'll touch on, but really doable things that make sense and giving ourselves those check boxes to accomplish things. So you mentioned the one thing of hydration, and I think that if we go back to the intrinsic motivation and we know how much water that our body needs to be sustained for success, we're more susceptible to get it, right? So for everybody out there, some pretty easy math. If you take your body weight and you divide it in half, that is the number of ounces that you should be consuming in water, okay? So I really encourage my clients out the gate to make hydration a priority. So for me, I weigh right about 190 pounds right now. So I'm going to round it up for 200 to make it easy. And I try and minimally hit 100 ounces of water, okay? So I've encouraged Jen with that, and I know Jen's able to do it. For me, I really try and get my first 50 ounces before noon, and then my second 50 ounces before 6 o'clock, right? So that will help combat the waking up in the night, having to go to the restroom, and all that fun jazz. And
how many ounces are a typical glass?
About 16. 16? I mean, a glass, if you're picking up like a glass, like a pint glass, that's 16 ounces. So that's what most people have in their kitchen. At least from my experience, most people don't have their little cup glasses, or they're for like one glass of water at 8 to 6 ounces. And most water bottles as well come at 16 ounces. So I also encourage getting a water bottle, and this is part of the water hack, and getting a water bottle that's half the amount of ounces that you need to get in the day, so that you can get your first one done by noon, and again, that second one done by 6.
And so when we say water bottles, I just want to clarify, we're not talking about buying those plastic bottles and going through them all day. We want to be good to the environment too. Buy a solid container that you are going to commit to.
I have my hydro flask that I love, right? And just carry it around with you. Stop ruining the environment. You just preached
Yeah,
it, so
right.
let's use it.
No. I don't mean that I'm going through water bottles. I mean that my container, I keep forgetting to bring it to me to client locations. So.
Oh, yeah, that can be challenging.
Yeah.
Strap it to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Somehow strap it to you.
So hydration is the first one, and that's great. So I was asking about the glass because just to give everyone an idea of how many glasses once they figure out the body weight divided by 2, right? And they get to that, then how many glasses does that mean? So, okay, so what else besides hydration?
So hydration's one step, but the next one that we can control, and some of us perceive this as an uncontrollable factor, but sleep is really important, right? We can't reinvest into our sleep bank. If we fall into a sleep deficit, it really can be detrimental to us. Being at that sleep deficit has actually been shown within research to be a contributing factor to about a half pound of weight, like fat storage, a week. So if we did the math on that in a year, we were looking at around 30 pounds gained just from sleep deprivation. So I know a lot of us out there are working hard hours and we're thinking, I got to get 5 hours, 6 hours of sleep, but that's on the low end, right? We need to be getting that 6 to 8 hours of sleep because that stress factor is going to build up as well. Sleep deprivation going to lead to more fat gain, which then reduces our productivity at the end of the day.
Yes. So for all of you out there who want to keep your nice figures, and for all of you out there who are wanting to lose some weight, Joe just pointed out a direct correlation between weight gain and sleep deprivation. So one thing we can stop doing is bragging about how well we function on how little sleep.
Absolutely. I used to be the one that was like, I can do 5 hours of sleep. I'm good. But I was storing more fat personally. And I don't like that. So reality being, I've started to invest in my sleep, and I've seen a huge payoff in returns. I'm less groggy throughout the day. My muscles recover better. I'm not in as much muscular soreness after training and all that fun jazz. So,
well, I also want to add, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you go. You tell me.
Well, I was just going to say, for those out there, because I know there's a number of people that are insomniacs. I was a chronic insomniac for 20 years. And so what I want to say to those of you who suffer from that and say, oh, well, all fun and games, I'll get 6 to 8 hours. If I could, I would, because that was me for a long time. I did not choose to only function on 4 and 5 hours of sleep. I could not sleep no matter what I did. And I want to give some words of hope to anyone out there who's suffering from that. I'll tell you what the best remedy has been for me. I tried the meditation, I tried the melatonin, I tried, whatever the prescription is for it years and years ago. And nothing really worked sustainably. My mind would outgrow every one of those things at some point. And so I was forever frustrated. What I will tell you has changed that dramatically is twofold. One, changing my lifestyle, because good health begets good health, right? So all those years I had chronic illness after chronic illness. So there was a correlation between my lifestyle, my chronic illness, and my insomnia. Once I changed my lifestyle habits and I started working out more and I started getting more hydration and I started setting my clock, meaning my body clock, to go to bed earlier, I got better sleep and more sleep. And I sleep regularly now. And when I have my very seldom night of insomnia, I just feel like a spoiled baby. It's like, wait, I'm not used to this anymore. I can't do this. Or I used to function like that all the time. And so once you overcome it. But so my point being that which the second part to this is I learned to let go, right? I learned to let go. Stop trying to fix everything. And as simple as that sounds, it was extraordinarily extraordinarily powerful for those two things to go together. If I let my vision of wanting to be strong carry me, I would become intrinsically motivated to set my body clock differently, to get up earlier, go to bed earlier, get better quality of sleep, get those routines in at the gym, get better. It all, one thing led to the other. I wasn't forcing myself to do it. So anyway, I hope that's a word of hope for those out there with insomnia, because boy, was that
Absolutely.
tough for me for many years.
I think that should be words of hope for sure, because it is a daily struggle, and that's something that people do often combat with when I do mention, hey, 6 to 8 hours of sleep, we got to try and make that happen. And I personally struggled with sleep apnea. I was a tad bit overweight, even though I was still athletic. I still held a lot of weight, especially around my neck, which made it my esophagus is smaller than it should be for my body. So it would actually cause my tongue to fall back, and I would have that diagnosis of sleep apnea. So I struggled with sleep as well, and it's something that Jen mentioned. If you get the rest of the life in order, you truly can fall into better sleep hygiene, and there are things you can do about it. So investigate it if you're struggling with it, and ask people the question, because he who says he can and he who says he can't, or she who says he can and she who says he can't, are both usually right? So we've got to convince ourselves and let it go that we can get that amount of sleep.
Yes. Okay, awesome. So what else is on your list? Did you say you had 4?
Okay, so
we made it through 2.
I've got 2. I think I may throw 5 out there at some point.
Okay.
We've got 2 so far. So from there, we'll go into stress. So our body should be under stress. That's part of how we can evolve and gain muscle and provoke the loss of fat, right? So there's good stress and there's bad stress, but we need to balance that, right? So within our training, that should also reflect within our work life. If we're extremely stressed out at work, we shouldn't be doing these massive, heavy strength training days or long, exhausting runs where we're coming home and feeling overly exhausted and going and, again, working out our problems and putting ourselves more at a deficit than we were before we went and trained. Does that make sense, Jen?
Mm-hmm. Yes, but I think that of all of our conversations over time, I've not heard you say that. So I'm having my own epiphany here that oftentimes when I've had a particularly long, hard day, because the nature of my work is pretty intense. I'm getting inside the minds and the fears of people with very heavy, heavy responsibilities. And so I do know that at the end of those days, I really want to go work it all out at the gym. I want the harder routine, and I get frustrated with my body that it won't give that to me. So what I just heard you do is give me permission to maybe do yoga on those days, or just take a walk, do something lighter, and give my body the break it needs instead of being frustrated with it.
Absolutely.
That's what I heard you say.
That's what I want people to take away, because reality is more times than not, when we go into the gym on those frustrated days with these overwhelming amounts of stress within our body, not just physically, but psychologically, those are the days we often end up hurting ourselves. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people coming in really just frustrated with their life, and they try and take it out on the gym floor, and they pay the price of not being able to train for several weeks, or even worse, several months, if they didn't control themselves enough, right? And that's the last thing we want to have happen.
This is so powerful. I'm literally having a massive epiphany here, because one of the reasons why I'm looking to change up my routine is because I have had 4 injuries very recently. And I kept questioning my age, my capacity, my ability. What am I doing wrong? Am I in the wrong place? Am I doing the wrong routine? And all of a sudden, with this bit of advice about balancing out that stress, I'm making the correlation of how often I do push myself because mentally I want the release and physically I'm not capable of it. And so I'm setting myself up to fail. I'm setting myself up to be injured.
Right.
That's a huge epiphany that I'm having right now, Joe.
It's an amazing epiphany. It's an amazing epiphany because, and you're sharing it with other people because often we do find ourselves in that boat, Jen. And again, you're a hard worker. So when you've had a hard day and you may not feel physically exhausted, you try and go put that physical demand on the body. But in actuality, the body's going to do better if you just release the chemicals by going in, like you mentioned, doing a light walk or doing some yoga or potentially doing some light dumbbell work. Just something that gets the body moving through full ranges of motion and releasing those chemicals that are the feel-good chemicals, right? Versus putting it in such a deficit where you have to fight back up the hill during your sleep, trying to recover, and then the next morning you wake up and you're all sore, achy, and worse off condition than you were the day before.
So fascinating, and I can't thank you enough. You know, every time I talk to you, I take something very powerful away from the conversation. But I wanna shift a little bit here because not everyone has that issue where they're overworking. A lot of people can't get motivated to do the work, right? And so let's talk to them. How do they balance out the stress? So, you know, there are people who are really wanting to make lifestyle changes, but they're still intrinsically motivated to go to the junk food when they're having those hard days. You know, I'm overworking and setting myself up for injury because I'm taking it out at the gym. But, you know, the reality is that not everybody does it that way if they haven't changed their lifestyle yet. So what would you say about balancing out that stress for those who wish they were motivated? Let's take a commercial break real quick, but when we come back, if you can answer that, Joe, I think you'd help a whole lot of people. Stay tuned.
Awesome.
Free your mind with OMTimes Radio, IOM-FM. Host your show on IOM-FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM-FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Hello, I'm Sandy Sedgbeer, host of OMTimes Magazine's flagship radio show, What is Going On? My passion is sifting through information, research, and innovations from new thought teachers, speakers, and researchers, pushing back the boundaries of what we know about life, energy, metaphysics, and the universe. I love shifting perceptions about who we are, why we're here, and how quickly impossible becomes normal when we open our minds, expand our awareness, and accept that the only limits that exist are those we place upon ourselves. So if you're the kind of forward-thinking, eager investigator of what lies beyond the current reality that most perceive, why not make a date to come play with me in the field of possibilities at 4 p.m. Pacific Time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time every Thursday, and together we can discover what's really going on.
Imagine being fired because of who you love. Imagine being denied medical treatment because of who you marry. Imagine being evicted because of who you are. Millions of Americans don't have to imagine this. They have to live it. Because in 31 states, it's legal to discriminate against LGBT people. Get the facts at beyondido.org. Brought to you by the Gill Foundation and the Ad Council.
Welcome back, everyone. For those of you who are just joining us, we are talking to Joe Moore, who is the founder and CEO of Barbells, Bolts, and Bourbon. And he is helping us with some lifestyle tips on how we can really treat our body better and become more intrinsically motivated toward a healthy lifestyle. So we've covered the first 3 of the 5 tips that he's got. One was hydration. How much water to drink every day by dividing your body weight in half, and that's how many ounces. The second was sleep. that, we can gain up to, what did you say, 30 pounds just from sleep deprivation alone. So we definitely want to do what we can
over the course of a year.
6 to 8 hours of sleep a night. And then the third one that we're still working through right now is balancing stress in a way that allows for your body to be optimized. And put another way, I would say that allows for us to still maintain a mind-body-spirit connection and balance in spite of major stressors in our lives. And so you're talking about it in relation to fitness. My question to you at the commercial break was, for those who don't go to the gym right now, for those who are sitting around going, I wish I wanted to, I can't ever get there, I always have an excuse for it, but I'd like to. My default when I'm stressed out is food or cigarettes or alcohol. And I'm going to confess to the audience, I was a smoker, a chronic smoker for many years. So, no real mystery on diagnoses of chronic illness. And that wasn't my only bad habit. I didn't eat well, that I didn't exercise. The list is long. And obviously I had a bad genetic system, if you heard the beginning of the show. But what would you say to those people about making that shift? Where can they start?
Absolutely. Where can we start? So we mentioned that I have 5 topics to talk about, and I've nailed 3 of them down. And I think that the last 2 hit that question head on, right? So I'm going to ask you a question on which one you want us to dive into first. But the last 2 within the topic conversation is understanding your body's nutritional habits and how your body really wants to receive food, okay, and the signs and symptoms that it can be giving you that it's not liking the food potentially. And then second is good movement patterns, and good movement being how that applies to the person at their stage of where they're at, right? Mm-hmm. So for you, just tell me which one, nutritional first or more movement first?
Let's go with nutritional, because I did use the example of, headed to the junk food. It's a default
headed
for a
to
lot
the
of
junk
people.
food.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's one that's most challenging because when we default going to the junk food, that's just our habits, right? So often I encourage people there to try and start replacing those habits and finding other resources. Often that hunger cue is a thirst cue. So maybe trying going and drinking some water, again, going back to the hydration thing, and hitting that ounces per water when you're having that desire to go get the junk food. Or we make sure that our meals are packed full of good food, that our body is satiated so that we don't have those desires to go to the junk food, right? And one last thing that I encourage within the junk food habit is preparing yourself on the front end to have something to reach for that's going to be a better alternative versus going to the most unhealthy resource that's possible. Does that make sense?
It does. And I'm going to add in there that I fundamentally believe that when we set an intention to make change, that intention goes out into the universe and starts putting together all of the reactions to that intention. And when we go back on our commitment to ourselves, so if we say, I really intend to start changing my lifestyle habits, I intend to start living a more healthy lifestyle. Well, my suggestion is start paying attention to how badly you feel every time you fall back into the old habit, because those intentions are very real and they manifest much more serious consequences when you try to go back on your commitment to yourself. So sometimes that incentive comes more naturally only because when you fall back, you suffer more. And I've experienced that. Clients, dozens, if not hundreds of my clients have experienced it too, but I'm calling it out because I want people to start paying attention to cause and effect. So once you start following this advice, I believe that you will over time become even more and more incentivized to stay with it. Okay.
Absolutely.
Go back to where you
at
were.
the end of it, I mean, that was perfect because that segues us into the next part of it where once you start seeing those results, you are incentivized to keep with it. And oftentimes that junk food just has that cyclical effect of where you just are hungrier later sooner. You've got 30, 45 minutes of being satiated, and then you're going right back trying to eat some more. And often they're dead calories, and they're going into this fat storage mode. So I'll touch on two things right fast within nutrition that are big talking points right now, and hopefully we can get through it and weave potential through any questions that you may have. So our body likes to operate in two systems, glycolysis or ketosis. So everybody's been talking hugely lately about this keto diet, right? And so it's when your body is operating in the state of ketosis, utilizing fats as its primary energy source, not fat that's stored on your body, but fats, the macronutrients. So brief overview there, there's 3 macronutrients: carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. And often, again, when we're in the state of ketosis, our body is using fats. But within our American standard diet, we have an abundance of carbohydrates, which is dense in glucose, which puts our body into a state of glycolysis. When that is when our body uses that sugar as its primary energy source, okay? To give you a brief overview of what both do very well, ketosis helps the brain operate really good because the brain likes to operate on fats, whereas being in a state of glycolysis helps the body build muscle. The caveat there is we have to be building the muscle and training ourselves to have that muscle when we're in that state of glycolysis, or it's just going to turn to a fat storage with the excess minerals and all the stuff that we get, the calories, the extra food, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
You tracking with me?
I am. Well, it's fascinating because, you know, if I weren't interested in the subject matter, I wouldn't be, because you're using very fancy terms. And so
go ahead.
And so I appreciate that you're breaking it down to help us understand the practical benefits and understanding, because I do think that goes into the misinformation, right? There's so many diets out there that if you don't know yourself, you're just jumping on a diet bandwagon. And then you're wondering why it doesn't work for you.
Right. And that's the hard part within it when you're talking and coaching with somebody who's already tried X, Y, and Z diet that doesn't work for him. I personally was reading an article yesterday, and the article was talking and advocating for this specific diet. And throughout the article, it's like the cancer research does not recommend this diet because it hasn't been shown to be significant nor effective. Yet this article was advocating for the use of the diet. So it's confusing, and it's really hard for research to be done to begin with, because nutrition, it has to be applicable to 50% of your population. So my encouragement to the people that are looking at this research, first go back and look at the population that's studied, whether they're young, old, male, female, sick, fit, ultra fit, or if the study is done on rats or mice and or even dogs, right? So make sure that the study could be applicable to you, and then make sure that it's going to help you get toward that goal, right? Because nutrition should be about that.
Yes, and on the note of misinformation, I want to emphasize this a little bit, because I was just facilitating a communication workshop with a lot of different physicians, different meaning they all specialized in a different area, and one of them was talking about the opioid addiction and gave the historical documentation of how it started. Well, it started with misinformation, where a pharmaceutical company that was incentivized to sell their products put out all of these statistics from studies that they did and told all the doctors who were concerned about opioid addiction, don't worry, don't worry, don't worry. They gave them the data to support that study, and look where we are today. So I use that as an example to warn people to say, just because there's a great marketing campaign around something doesn't make that something right for you. You Absolutely. Are the owner of your body. You are the owner of how you feel every day. You are the owner of your well-being. So as an owner of anything, we take great pride and we do our homework and we take responsibility. Make sure you do your due diligence. So I think, Joe, in that vein, what you're saying is hugely important. And I think the first step in educating yourselves is giving yourself permission to make the decisions for yourself.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And on the note of that research topic there, Jen, I'll throw this out there that most fundings go towards disease treatment and not like preventative nutrition. So when you're looking at these studies, make sure that it's not a sick population that's being studied, and make sure that, like I mentioned before, it's applicable to who you are and where you are at that day and age, right? So make sure that it's not just a flashy marketing campaign luring you into some thing to buy or this new fad diet, because it does turn out well, like you mentioned. And your body is going to give you signs if it's going in the right direction or not.
Right. Well, I want to make sure you run down your full list before we run out of time. So I know I keep intervening and giving stories, so I don't want to get you off track again. What else do you want to share?
The last part, Jen, and you've actually helped tremendously in keeping this topic going in the right direction, so thank you for that. But the last one's just good movement. And what I mean by what good movement should look like and should feel like, I'll just hit a broad scope starting out. For people that do go into gyms, if we're not getting a warm-up in before our big lifts or our movement for the day or our HIIT interval, we're missing out, okay? That's going to potentially lead to a little bit more injuries down the road. Not initially, but the body likes to be warm and move through some limited range of motion before it gets put to the extreme, right? So, again, warm up, do your workout, and then do a cool down. We have a chronic issue of not stretching as a population. We think that it should only be done for 5-10 seconds, when in actuality, the times that I've seen most effective, it's bouts of 25 to 35 seconds for about 3 times. So again, make sure that we are warming up, putting ourselves through movement patterns for 20 minutes, 25 minutes maybe. That could be walking, that could be some barbell work, that could be some yoga, that could be really a lot of ways of just moving the body through time and space. And then making sure that we cool down and we stretch and we value the body, and we practice some gratitude in that stretching period as well, because we have this body that just did this amazing thing for us, even if it is just walking down the street. You took yourself from point A to point B and you came back. And I encourage anybody that's just starting out in fitness, know that that's a task within itself, right? If you're just getting back into it, one of the biggest things that I discourage is trying to compare yourself to where you used to be and how you need to get back there faster. Be comfortable with where you currently are and how you can improve for the next day, and keep moving forward and keep consistent within that training.
Yes. So this is great. I remember coming out of my 5th surgery in 10 months, and I was so tired of feeling like I was gaining weight, I was gaining cellulite, I was losing muscle mass, because I would come, every surgery I came out of, the doctor would say, you can't even walk around the block. Like, I want very little to any movement. And I'd have to wait and wait. And of course, I didn't come from a background of exercise, so it was, I had to be in a bad place if I was craving it. And
right.
So I worked up the desire to get back in shape while I was in that surgical recovery. And I remember when he first gave me permission to go for a small run, I wasn't a big runner. And I knew, I had friends who were doing half marathons and marathons, and I had been down for so long that I felt overzealous. Like, I'm going to go run. When I would get out there and my body would say, yeah, good luck with that. If you make it a mile, it'll be a miracle. And so what I did, to your point, was I'd go out, and the little that I could do, I started a mantra. And the mantra was this, and I would just say it over and over as I was running. I would say, I'm stronger today than I was yesterday. I'll be stronger tomorrow than I am today.
Heck yeah. Heck yeah. Well, I love that, Jen.
It got me through. It got me through. And it became the thing that I just repeated over and over as I went. And it allowed my mind to settle down and be patient with my body. And I do think that's really important, whether you're recovering from surgery or you're just trying to get started with a new lifestyle habit. It's okay to go slowly. Don't be overzealous, right? Keep everything in check. Meet yourself where you are. So I'm just a huge proponent of everything you teach, Joe, and I'm just sharing stories to illustrate all the great points you're making, because every time you speak, I can relate so deeply to what you're saying, and I've lived it. I've lived those hardcore realities. I've lived multiple stages of transformation in my life. And so this is why I've had you on the show. I'm so grateful for your being here. Is there anything else? You've gone through your list beautifully. Is there anything else that you want to share with the audience in terms of making change in their lives, and any tips or inspiration or motivation that you would like to offer up?
I don't know how I'm going to top your mantra there, Jen, but if I could say just one thing of, like, truly go have fun. You can do it. Enjoy yourself within fitness. If you're not, do something different. There's a million things out there.
Yes. So on that note, everyone, be well and have fun. We'll see you next week.